This was the best 24-hour readathon I've had in a very long time. After he kissed her, he said something really dumb, and it's Steven's fault, and she has every right to be mad, but at the same time, I'm like, can y'all just kiss and make up because my heart can't take this? And they're so cute. So it is August 29th, and I have read one book off my August TBR. We're doing a timed 24-hour readathon this weekend, and we're gonna be focusing on reading books for my August TBR. I don't know where my priorities were this month. Clearly not on my TBR list. So that's the plan. Let's talk about our options that we're gonna pull from. I have quite a few new releases and one backlist book that is a 5-star prediction for me that I've already started. So we'll talk about that. I have Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. As I start reading and getting into these books, that's when I'll give you the summaries for them. Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. This is kind of like a gothic fantasy. YA, I believe. We have Ami by S.J. Jones. This is the second book, the sophomore book in the Guardians of the Dawn series. It's like a Sailor Moon-esque YA fantasy. We have the finale book in the duology, I think it's called the House of Dead duology. We have Ghost Smith by Nikki Pau-Preto, another YA. Clearly it's a YA weekend, but I'm very excited for this. I've heard lots of good things. I loved Bonesmith. And then the book that is confirmed, because I have already started it, is Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher. This is my 5-star prediction for this vlog. I'm already about 100 pages in and literally loving every second of it. We will continue with this one first before we jump into our next choice. It's currently 2 o'clock, a little bit past 2 o'clock on Thursday. We are going to start our 24-hour readathon today. Let's say at 5 o'clock. I think that would be a good time. Again, I'm going to be timing, so when I'm not reading, I will turn off the timer. But I think let's start at 5 o'clock. Today, I'm trying to finish my September bullet journal spread, and I think that will give me enough time to just like do everything I need to do, film, all that fun stuff before we can fully focus on Paladin's Grace. So that is the intro. I will catch up with y'all with a reading update, probably some B-roll in between. Let's have so much fun. We're only about 30 minutes into our 24-hour readathon, but I wanted to do an update on Paladin's Grace. I'm very sorry that this cover's quite shiny, so I'm gonna hold it so you don't get a glare in your eyeballs. I'm 123 pages into this book, and I'm having the best time. It's so reminiscent of her writing in Swordheart, and Swordheart was a 5-star for me. I literally loved it so much. It's so unserious, and the characters are so endearing. I just can't wait. The fact that this is a 5-book series, somewhere around there, makes me so excited, because with T. Kingfisher, she's such a chameleon of an author that like you never really know what you're gonna get. Yeah, Stephen is a paladin for the Saint of Steel, who wasn't a major deity, but he wasn't entirely obscure. So this was like a known god, and the god got into like a fight with another god, I have no idea, passed away. No one knew that that could happen. There's kind of a panic, and a lot of the paladins and the priests were impacted. A lot of them went crazy, and Stephen does have some, it's impacted him as well, this kind of power that he was able to derive from being a paladin for the Saint of Steel. It almost allowed him to go into, if you're familiar with Skyrim, like a berserker mode, and he could just like battle really well. But before his god passed away, it gave him this power. It felt like he was ignited by this golden light and he was able to battle. And now when it takes over, it's like this blackness. It's like this fire of rage that he can't control. So that's Stephen. He's in a very dark place when we meet him. It's tough for him to get out of bed in the morning, is how he describes it. He's definitely depressed. But all of that changes when he encounters Grace. Grace is a perfumer. She's extremely introverted. She's a very anxious girly pop. She has been wronged by men in the past. When you read about her husband, like really and truly, he's such garbage trash, you're like, girly, you're so better off without him. But she is a little bit emotionally damaged from her past relationships. They bump into each other by happenstance, and it is like from first sight. They're both so awkward with each other, but he helps her. She's being chased after. He helps her get out of that situation, and then they just keep running into each other. They get entangled into the situation together, and that's where the story continues. So basically, they witness an assassination attempt gone wrong, and now they have to navigate a web of treachery beset on all sides by spies, poisoners, while a cryptic killer stalks one step behind. The back of this book, I feel, was a bit unclear. It's much more political than that makes it sound. Like, it sounds almost like a murder mystery and they have to run for their lives from this murderer. That's really not the case. I was pleasantly surprised to find that it's much more political. The saints and the priests are entangled with politics. Y'all, this man, Stephen, is just the most endearing. He's such a sweetheart, but yet he's also this like badass knight, basically. Like, he walks around in chainmail and he smells like gingerbread, and that is what made Grace so intrigued by him, because as a perfumer, she is commissioned from royals, constantly trying to make them a new perfume. They commission, oh, I want to smell the best in the royal court, and she's like, okay, gotcha, babe. But they all want to smell like sandalwood. She just feels very uninspired. So when he stands out and he smells like gingerbread, she's trying to figure out, like, why does he smell like this? He very much acts like a knight in shining armor, because in social situations, Grace gets very flustered and he just wants to like be there for her and make her feel better. So I'm kind of switching back and forth between immersive reading and just listening to the audio. I do have some work stuff that I've been doing, and I'm trying to get at least like an hour and a half to 2 hours into this 24-hour readathon before I stop for din-dins. So that's where we're at. Just the quickest little update. He knitted her socks and brought them to her because it was raining for the last couple days and there was no roses that he could collect for her, so he knitted her socks. How freaking cute is that? Okay, we have updates. We are 3 hours and 7 minutes into this readathon, which seems like nothing, but we're so far into this book. We're more than halfway. There's a kiss. There was a kiss that was beautiful and amazing, but obviously they're so quirky and awkward that like one of them ruined it, and it was a whole thing, and it made me very sad. And now they're not in a good place and I'm stressed. It wasn't even like a third act breakup. We're not even in the third act and they haven't broke up because they haven't gotten together yet, but I'm obsessed with them. It's way more angsty than I've ever experienced T. Kingfisher write. Like, Sweetheart was also kind of angsty, but it wasn't a focal point throughout the whole story, and I feel like this is very focused on the romance. Like, yes, there are murder mysteries going on in the background. Everyone is losing their heads. It's just like a chopping heads off festival. Heads are everywhere. They step on them, they find them, they're scared of them. But our girly pop Grace is feeling rejected, and I'm so sad. I am depression. Something else bad just happened to her. And I told you that she's like emotionally damaged from men in the past. Has like little stashes of clothes and money in a bunch of different hiding places in case she has to like run away again. But I'm very confused by that because I'm like, girly pop, why? Like, why would you need to run away to a different city just because like a man is being mean to you? So I feel like there's another There's something else happening with Grace, I think. I'm trying to like really figure out this murder mystery whole like serial killer chopping off heads aspect, and I am not good figuring this stuff out. I always get suspicious of people I have no business being suspicious of. So that's what's happening. These couple paragraphs like took me out with Grace. I'm very in my feels. Grace only had her own life, and it had taught her that you took precautions because life changed too often at other people's whims, and sooner or later everything would be taken away. Right, she said. Right, okay, not completely lost yet. You haven't lost everything. There's still Marguerite, who's her friend and her roommate. She won't let you down. As she had done too many times already, she straightened her shoulders and went to go pick up the pieces. It's so sad. She just like always feels unsafe, and Steven is the only one that's like made her feel safe in a very, well, since ever actually. After he kissed her, he said something really dumb, and it's Steven's fault, and she has every right to be mad, but at the same time I'm like, can y'all just kiss and make up because my heart can't take this? And they're so cute. But also I need to figure out who's murdering people. And now like I'm just realizing this is, not just realizing, but this is the first series that I've read by T. Kingfisher. Like all of the other books that I've read by her have been standalones. So I'm like, the fact that we're not gonna get a conclusion to the romance, we're not going to get a conclusion to the murder mystery, like, do I need to order the second book right this second? I'm obsessed with this. Like, I'm having the best time. I feel like we're also reading it really freaking fast. It's already 11:13, but we only have this much left in the book. I'm gonna try to listen to another like maybe hour, maybe like 45 minutes. And then we're gonna go to sleep. And I'll give you updates in the morning. And hopefully it's more positive. Stop falling over, that's so rude of you. Besties, we have less than 100 pages left of Paladin's Grace. I could not stop reading this last night. I was tearing up and also laughing out loud. Like I literally laugh out loud at her writing. But I was tearing up because there's this one scene between Grace and Steven where our girlie is in deep with some stuff and some things. Unfairly, she's like in this situation. And she's so scared, and she's like continuing to feel unsafe. And we've talked about how feeling unsafe has been a theme in her whole life, and Steven is the only one that like makes her feel any better. She sees him for the first time, like when she's like in this situation, and he just comes up to her and like hugs her, and he says like, I've never seen Grace cry before. She's been anxious, she's been faint, she like all of these things. Like he's definitely seen her at not her best moments, but she's never cried. And he just like goes up to her, hugs her, and she's like, can you please do this one thing for me? And he's like, absolutely, because her voice is wobbling, her lip is wobbling, and he's like, I'm gonna do anything to make my baby girl not cry because I've never seen her do this before because she's so upset. I was tearing up. Like I think I had one tear fall down, and I was like, okay, this is a 5-star. T. Kingfisher is one of my favorite authors at this point. So we're gonna finish this today. Let me see where we are in terms of time. We are at 20 hours and 22 minutes, so not even a full 4 hours into our 24-hour reading challenge. We're almost done with this book, so we have a lot of reading left to do on our hands. We had stream earlier today. We've streamed Fields of Mystria. Later tonight we have pizza and movie night. It's 3:15 right now. I want to try to read until about 6 o'clock ish, because I know that for the rest of the night we definitely won't be reading after pizza and movie night. We're watching the Scooby-Doo movies, which I know I already told you, but I'm so excited. I also have a package that I'm about to go get from the mailroom, and I think it might be books. So if it is, I'm gonna open it on here with you guys. We indeed got kind of a banged up package, so hopefully the books are okay. I'm hoping both of them are in here and it's not just one. We got Hopeless and we got Powerless because I have been freaking obsessed with these books. So the next one that I have to read, why does this look so chunky? The next one that we have is Powerless, and I'm so excited to read about Jasper's story. Jasper is a hockey player and he's like an adopted Eden boy. He's not like technically their brother, but they took him in because his home life was difficult to say the least. And he's like the lost sad boy with a heart of gold. That's literally how he's described on here, and that's so accurate, and I can't wait to read about our baby boy. I need to have self-control, and we can't just read cowboy romance in this vlog. I'm trying to stick to the couple books that we talked about earlier. We have finished, and I just paused the timer, and we are 4 hours 30 minutes into the readathon. So one book already down, which is a very strong start, and a 5-star, so very strong start overall. I just looked up, I was very interested to read her author's note, and she said that she intended for her next book after Sword Heart to be the sequel to Sword Heart, and she ended up plotting this book. She said that she attended a podcast or listened to a podcast that was about perfumery, and she thought about how good of a profession that would be for a female main character, and how it kind of lends itself to like poisoning and all that stuff. It was so fun. It was so fun. I have never read a book like this before, and it was just the best thing in the whole world. Remember when I said this is a series, and so we probably weren't gonna get a conclusion to the romance or to the murder mystery? The murder mystery is still definitely very open, but the romance in this was concluded. Like, this was Grace and Steven's story, and I love them so much. And so book 2 follows one of the other Saints of Steel, Istvan, and he's really funny too. He was in this one. He also smells like gingerbread, and I'm very curious to see what happens with him. All that to say, as much as I want to just deep dive and binge read this series, I am gonna be a good nugget, and I think the next book we're gonna pick up is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid, because I've been dying to read this book. Also, this cover is freaking stunning. Like, looking at it in the viewfinder, it's so beautiful. Also, these end pages are gorgeous. So I think this is gonna be the next one, but like I said, sorry, my AC just turned on. Like I said, we probably won't do too much more reading tonight, but tomorrow, this is what we will be starting with. Hello, we are currently on closing out sprints for Readathon, and I am 72 pages into Lady Macbeth and wanted to give an update. So this one's been a little bit tricky to get into, I'll say. Because of the writing style, I think it's intentionally a bit jarring, and also a lot of the words and spelling that Ava Reid decided to go with, because this is a period piece and she is trying to reimagine the Macbeth story, like obviously with Lady Macbeth, but this takes place in 11th century Scotland, and she even puts like a note on the names. She has a whole glossary of words in the front and also a little character index as well. But she writes, in the murky settings of 11th century Scotland, language was complex, evolving, and malleable. The world of medieval Britain does not have a sort of rigidity that modern day convention often expresses upon it. Everything could change at the drop of a hat or the thrust of a knife. And so she's incorporated a lot of that diction into the book, And I'm not gonna lie, like without an audiobook, I was so lost. A lot of these words I have no idea how to pronounce. I'm just fumbling through and doing my best. The first like 20 pages was the brunt of it, and now that we're through that, I feel I have a better understanding. I have been referring to that glossary, absolutely. The premise of this book, let's start there, is about our main character, Lady Macbeth. But we meet her as she is a 17-year-old bride, and she is from France, but she's getting married off to this Scottish lord, Macbeth, to create this alliance as they did during this time. So we meet her, she's 17 years old, she's traveling to a completely foreign country, a culture she is relatively unfamiliar with. She's a very smart, educated, and clever girl. She's educated herself as much as she can about this court that she's going to, this lord, who his allies are and who his enemies are of a sorts, and some of their like culture and language that they speak. So she is more educated than most would be in this situation, but it's still really scary. He's, in her mind, her future husband is kind of a barbaric lord. This society in Scotland, for her, compared to France, is kind of like a barbaric, chaotic place and people, and they're much more, I think, prone to violence. She even mentions that she's heard of some like rumors that lords in this area like share their brides because they're seen as like a spoil of, not war, but like their treasures, and they share their treasures with their men. And she's like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm so terrified and I'm so scared. She didn't want to go as well. She was like begging her dad not to. The name that they refer to her as, I don't know if it's going to transition later in the book to her being referred to as Lady Macbeth, but her to herself, and the narrator is calling her Roskilde, Lady Roskilde, I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to say anything in this book, so I'm just gonna throw that out there. Please forgive me with my pronunciation. Roskilde has this rumor about her because she's very, very beautiful, but in a unique way. Her hair is completely white. Her skin, they almost refer to her as bloodless because her skin is so, so pale. She also has interesting eyes. Basically, she's made to wear this veil because everyone says that if you look into her eyes, the rumor is if you look into her eyes, she causes madness in men, so women can make eye contact with her. The truth of it is, and she was retelling this story of when she was 13 and she wanted this stable boy, so she kind of went to him. They did get found out, like nothing happened, but she wanted the stable boy's hands on her hands and his lips on her lips. It was lust that overtook him, not madness. It was her desire fed into his blood like poison from a barb. She wanted him and she made him want her back. That is the danger of her eyes, that they may compel men to do as she wishes. If the truth were known, it would not be a veil and a bridal gown and a marriage to a faraway lord. It would be a noose or a blade or a pyre. To cause lustful madness is one thing. Any beautiful woman has that power if she wishes to exercise it. And even if she doesn't, even if such a thing can be called power, to mold a man to her will is another. I think I am enjoying it. It's been a little bit like, I just needed to get my bearings with it. I needed to settle into this story a little bit more. It's giving she's gonna play these men for all they're worth, and I'm very curious to see where it goes. And we have also, within these first 72 pages, have had a hint of the occult. There are some very, very creepy witches. Little update, Rooney, because we are now on page 160 and this is a pretty short book. It's 295 pages, so we're actually pretty close to halfway. It's a little, I don't know, I don't even want to call it slow because I do feel like a lot is happening. I just hope that it gets weird. Like, I want it to just get weirder and weirder. At its core, this book is about a woman who's completely isolated. She's trying to survive, but like unplanned things are happening, and she was kind of the catalyst for a lot of violence, and now she's just kind of embracing it because she sees this as getting the attention off of her and creating like conflict between all of these men so that they like focus on the conflict and the violence. If Ava Reed's goal is to just like retell the story but put a feminine lens on it, I think she's accomplished that, but I'm hoping that she does more than that. It has really good bones. It has a lot of good setup. It feels like we've been getting set up this whole time, that I'm like, all right, hit me with like a really climactic point, and then I just want to see them all descend into madness. It's currently 8:45. We have 15 hours and 44 minutes left of the readathon, so I have a feeling I could probably finish this book in another hour and a half. I just need it to get a little bit more unhinged. Okay, that is the update. I'm gonna keep reading now. Have 15 hours, 51 minutes left. I'm thinking today we're actually gonna switch to the audiobook for Ghostsmith. I think it's finally time for me to say that Lady Macbeth hasn't like captured me like I was hoping that it would. I do still want to try to finish it, but I was definitely losing momentum last night as I was reading it, and if I wasn't doing sprints with Mel and Cass and Lexi and Bree, I'm not sure that I would have read as much as I actually did last night. So I'm so thankful for them. I'm so thankful for those sprints because they kind of held me accountable with that book. But I think it will be good to switch things up and switch to Ghostsmith. I've already listened to about 6% of that audiobook just because when I was taking JMO out yesterday morning and this morning for his little walk, that's what I was listening to. We jump right back into the action. I will give the summary for Bonesmith when we get back. Right now we're on our way to Trader Joe's because I desperately need to go food shopping, but I'm also really hoping it's September 1st. I'm hoping that they have all their seasonal stuff in store. So that's what we're gonna go check out right now. Today also I need to do a massive clean of the entire house. So it's the perfect audiobook day. Good morning, besties. I have lots of updates for you. First of all, I realized I didn't update you after we went to Trader Joe's. They didn't have their seasonal stuff up. They had a literal sign that said, we're gonna have our seasonal stuff out on September 5th, I think they said, which was so rude. Like, plan for September 1st, please, because we need it. We need it right now. We have 11 hours and 31 minutes left of our readathon, which we are over the halfway point, and we have finished 2 books. So can we finish another 2 books from now to the end? I think that's pretty doable. I have updates on Lady Macbeth and I have updates on Ghostsmith. So let's start with Lady Macbeth because I did end up finishing that book last night. It's a very interesting like rating. So I don't think it's the most enjoyable book to read because it's not like the most readable. And I've mentioned this, like, you don't just fall into the writing with that book. You have to like actively work at it. But I feel like that's like reading any classic. And so the fact that she did a reimagining of Lady Macbeth, but she kept it, or a reimagining of Macbeth, and made it like a feminist type of version where we're following our heroine instead of our hero. Well, actually, she's kind of the villain of the story. You're following a villain of the story. But I did think it was satisfying to be able to like finish that
book because I liked the second half a lot more than the first half. I understand why she did the pacing the way that she did. I think that a big strength of Ava Reid's writing is atmosphere. And so if you are going into autumn and you want some really atmospheric reads, I think that she did a fantastic job with Lady Macbeth. It's a very similar atmosphere to A Study in Drowning and also to Salt and Sorrow. It's like a waterlogged castle that's built over the sea. You just get this feeling that you're damp down to your bones and you can never get warm and you can never get fully dry. Sorry, my battery died. I think that I misclassified this book as YA, and I actually just want to check on Goodreads what it truly says and if it does say adult, because there are a lot of topics. I personally would classify this more as adult, even though our main character is 17 years old, because it is adult. Okay, that was my mistake. I went into this thinking it was YA because our character is 17 years old, and Ava Reid typically writes YA. However, this book has some content warnings for, I would call it SA. I mean, this takes place in 11th century Scotland, so it's very much a wife's duties to her husband, even if she like doesn't want to. And also this girl is 17 years old, so that's like, it's another layer of just horrifying, disgusting behavior from men. I think this is a book that if you wanted to analyze writing style, if you wanted to analyze a lot of symbolism, if you enjoy reads like that, you would really, really love this. It reads like a traditional classic almost, because obviously traditional classics tend not to be the most enjoyable things to read, but it's worth it because you get to read into things, you get to decipher things. The author puts a lot of thought into their symbolism, messaging, all of that stuff. I'd probably land at a 3.5, but on Goodreads I did give it a 3-star because I'm a sucker for a good atmosphere. She absolutely crushed it. I loved like the messaging when I finally got to the end of the book. I did find it satisfying to read. It wasn't like I got to the end and was like, I wish that I had DNF'd this. Okay, so that is Lady Macbeth, and then I am 31% into Ghostsmith, and so I owe y'all a little bit of a synopsis of Bonesmith. I have talked about these books on my channel before, but just like a quick recap of what these books are about. We follow our main character, Wren. She is a, what time is it? She is a bonesmith. This is a society where they have guilds. So there's the bonesmiths, there's ironsmiths, there's goldsmiths. Wren is in training to become a Valkyr, which is a type of warrior that fights against the undead. They're very skilled in conquering and kind of laying to rest bones that have realived themselves. Bones, bodies, spirits, all of that sort. And that's important in this society because there's this entire area called the Breach where the dead have come back to life, and death magic is really powerful in that area, so it's very unsafe for humans. We meet Wren when she is in her qualifying trials to officially get her title of Valkyr. She potentially gets sabotaged and she fails her trials, so she gets exiled for her failure, for her shame on her family, and her goal is to redeem herself, redeem her family. She's sent to this wall of this dangerous territory, and a Prince of Gold ends up coming to the wall. He gets kidnapped and taken into this really dangerous area, and Wren sees her opportunity to prove herself, to redeem herself by rescuing this Prince of Gold. And so I'm trying to think of what I want to say about this one. The things that really drew me into the first book is I think it's such an interesting concept. It is YA, but there actually is a lot of swearing. Our main character, Wren, drops the F-bomb kind of a lot for no reason. So I would say it's aged up. What I really enjoy about Nikki Palpretto's writing is, like I said, her creativity with the whole premise of the book. The magic is very interesting. Her scenery and her imagery in some of the scenes with the characters is immaculate. Like, I'm a sucker for a good setting, and these books have an incredibly atmospheric setting. Very, very appropriate for fall if you're looking for like a kind of creepy, death magic-y, graveyardy, dead forest, underground type setting. These are your books. I think that you will really like them. That was super fun. I'm also loving the narrator of this book. I love her accent, whatever it is. This audiobook is narrated by Molly Hansen. That is the update for now. That was a very long update, but I had a lot to talk about with y'all. I will catch up with you guys when we read more of Ghostsmith. The betrayal. Friends, we have 6 hours and 33 minutes left in this readathon, and we just finished Ghostsmith by Nikki Powell-Preto. I loved this duology a lot. I also was just trying to research other audiobooks that Molly Hansen has narrated, and all I could find was Bonesmith and Ghostsmith, and I need her to narrate more because she was incredible. I'm someone that's okay if a book kind of cuts off when the action is over because like essentially that's the end of the story. There were some loose ends that needed to be tied off, but I think the ending for me like dragged a little bit. It was very like happily ever after, which is fantastic, but the action of this plot was amazing. It was so good. I also really enjoyed how spread out everything was because they're in a battle, they're all together, then they kind of get separated out. It's like a multi-phased battle almost. So good, so fun. This is such a good YA. Can you call it YA if there's the F word in it like all the time? I don't know. There's like the most minor romantic subplot, so it's like present, but I really wouldn't call this a fantasy romance. My favorite character, actually I have two. I love Leo. I think that Leo is so funny. He plays like a Dandelion type role from The Witcher. Like he is just the comedic relief. He's a schmoozer. Love him. The other character that I really love, who we meet towards the end of the first book and then he's in this book much more, is Hawk. I love him. I also love the way that Molly like narrated him. I think I mentioned that before, so I'm sorry. But Hawk is such an interesting character, and he's so troubled and he's so sweet though. Like sweet, but then there's lots of things going on with him. I love a complex, complicated character. I had such a good time with this. 4 stars. Absolutely love this. The magic was incredible. I love that we got to learn even more, like the magic was expanded upon in this second book. That means with our remaining 6 hours and 30 minutes, we have to go put this on our bookshelves, and let me grab our final book. I have been scouring high and low for an audiobook for this, and I can't find it anywhere. This is Ami, Guardians of the Dawn by S.J. Jones. This first book in the series is called Zara. Basically, each book in the series is going to follow a different person, we'll say, because I don't know if they're all going to be like female, but these are characters who have lush backstories Like, I was obsessed with Zara's backstory and the motivations for her character. This one is the sophomore book of the series. They say that when the world is out of balance, the Guardians of the Dawn are reborn. In this one, we follow Lee Ami, who is in exile, exiled from friendships, from ordinary magic, and from her own family. She is sent to the outermost west to care for her mentally ill father, whose rantings and ravings might actually spell out a dire prophecy. When her father is arrested for stealing from the sacred grounds of the castle, Ami must make herself of use to the presiding beast by finding a cure for the mysterious blight that is decimating the harvest. That is the summary for this one. Like I said, I'm a little bit nervous because I don't have the audio, and that's been really, really helpful, but I think that we can get through this in 6.5 hours. We have just under 3 hours left. We have 2 hours and 51 minutes left of the readathon. I feel like I start every clip saying that, so I'm sorry. We are a little bit less than halfway through. We're on page 152, and this is, I guess, like not what I was expecting. So even though in the first book, I think we got a much slower introduction to these like monsters and demons and blight that's taking over, we had a lot more like silly, goofy moments between our characters before we really got into magic and what the Guardians of the Dawn are, and like getting introduced to these monsters and the mother of 10,000 demons. This book, you jump right in. I was expecting a little bit more backstory from Ami, because we got a lot of backstory for Zara. We got to see her day-to-day life in her situation. Ami, we do get her like current living situation, but that changes very quickly. We get pulled right into the action, and this book, I don't know what it is lately, but like August, I read, I'm pretty sure my first zombie book ever with The Girl with All the Gifts. Then we just read Ghost Smith, like literally our last book that talked about revenants, that talked about the dead rising back up, their spirits were unsettled. This book also has revenants in it. I've never read a zombie book before literally August, and now I've read like 3. Well, I guess Bone Smith could count, so 4. What is happening? Zombies like usually scare the bejesus out of me, but I'm like desensitizing myself to zombies, I guess. It's so good. I will never not give the comparison that this is Sailor Moon in book form. And if you've watched the old like cartoons, I don't know if Sailor Moon officially counts as an anime, but the monsters in that show were actually pretty scary. The monsters in these books are actually very scary. So I don't mean to make it seem like, you know, it's like Sailor Moon where, yeah, it is like kind of like girly pop. Our Guardians of the Light, their powers manifest in that bright, colorful way that, you know, in Sailor Moon when they like transform. I do kind of imagine that in my head, which is a vibe. But these books are scary. They're also gruesome. Just to give some context, they got bit by the undead, but then they like spiraled into more because their blight, they call it like taken over by the void, wasn't cleansed by one of the Guardians of the Dawn. So he like transforms into this crazy monster that was made out of body parts of other humans. I don't mean to make these books sound super like girly pop and very like frou-frou and stuff like that. They are dark, and the battle scenes against the monsters are some of my favorite scenes. They're so well done, they're so interesting. I will say in book 2 we have a lot more travel than what we were getting in the first book, whereas the first book was really setting the foundation for a lot of these things to happen. I'm having a fantastic time. I also really appreciate how diverse this world is. Even though these books aren't very long, you get a lot packed into them. The first like 2 chapters I was reading, I was a little bit like, oh my gosh, should I have reread Zara, because I really don't remember what's going on. But you do get a very slow integrated recap within the first about 80 pages that now I feel like I'm fine. I know who everyone is again. I remember most of what happened in that first book, that I didn't need to do like a full-on reread to be able to be caught up to speed. I'm excited to get back to it. I think I'm gonna go read by the pool for an hour before I have to log into work. That was our official timer for the 24-hour readathon. So I only have 20, maybe about 30 pages left of Ami. So I am gonna finish it right now just to be able to give you like final thoughts. We're right at a really juicy part as well. So I'm gonna finish these pages and then we will do a final wrap up. Okay, we went slightly over time, but like 30 pages. Hopefully y'all aren't mad at me for that. Technically we read for 24 hours and 20 minutes, we'll just call it. But I just finished Ami by S.J. Jones and I loved this. I think I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I meant to look up actually what I gave Zara because that one was also a very high rating for me. I gave Zara 5 stars. I think that this ending wasn't the most surprising. Like you can kind of see through the plot a little bit, you know where it's going. However, I'm not someone who like has to be super surprised by everything that happens. Like it's okay if a plot is a little bit transparent because I liked how it ended. I like where we're going. Towards the end, the one thing that was a little bit confusing, it was being built throughout this book, but I don't think I fully understand like what's happening. Not only is there this war between good and evil, let's say, they call it like balance and chaos as well, the demons coming back to life, the guardians of the dawn. There's also a lot of political upheaval. I don't think it was as clear as I would have liked it to be. It got a little bit messy towards the middle, and then especially at the end there was a lot of quick setup for the next book where I think we're gonna get a lot more into this political strife. So I'm curious to see when the next book is going to get announced. My hope for this series is that more people will give it a chance. Like Zara was excellent. I thought that this book was really fun to read about. It has elemental magic. It has really fun, I almost called them boss battles, and that is my Twitch streaming brain, but like monster and demon battles. I feel like this demon battle was a bit more anticlimactic than what I was hoping for. Like that's why this one wasn't a 5-star for me. I think that Zara was excellent, and the ending of that, the big battle at the end of that was so incredible. Whereas this one, because we were trying to throw in all of this politicalness that was happening in the background too, it felt like as the reader, when you're getting to these really climactic plot points, we were almost pulled in 2 directions of like demon fighting, but then also political setup. And that's where it just felt a little bit weird for me. It just felt a little bit messy and unclear. So 4 stars. This was the best 24-hour readathon I've had in a very long time. Like, I know that Lady Macbeth was a little bit teetering, but that was still a 3-star, and towards the end I really enjoyed reading that book. But
all of these other books have been 4 stars or higher. We had 1 5-star, like, that is crazy to me. So I hope that you enjoyed watching, friends. If you've made it this far, leave either a star or a moon for the Guardians of the Dawn series. Please pick these books up. Please show them love. Please give them a chance. They're so worth it. They're literally so fun. And I can't wait for book 3. Hopefully it comes out in 2025. We read, as a quick recap, so we finished 4 books. We read just under 1,500 pages. We read 1,486 pages. And if I had to do like an average star rating, it's probably like pretty close to a 4-star, which is incredible. So I will catch you in the comments. I will see you in my next one. Toodles, friends.